The first sound was laughter, sharp, brittle, cutting through the thin air of our cramped living room like glass snapping under pressure. My name was on their tongues. Not lovingly, not proudly, mocking. "That girl still thinks she'll make something of herself," my mother said, her voice floating through the cracked door of my bedroom. "God, she's 22 and still struggling with basic things. Imagine her trying to survive in the real world." "Don't worry," my father replied, his tone dripping with that familiar mix of arrogance and exhaustion. "She won't. She never does. She's just average. Always has been." A pause. Then another laugh, low, confident, cruel. I froze, halfway through packing my graduation gown into its garment bag. My fingers stalled in midair, the fabric slipping from my hands. The room seemed to tilt sideways. For a second, I honestly thought I might faint. They weren't whispering. They weren't hiding this conversation. They sounded relaxed, casual, like they'd said all these things before, maybe hundreds of times when they thought I couldn't hear. My throat tightened. Heat rushed to my face. I backed away from the door, each step trembling, and sat on the edge of my bed because suddenly, my legs didn't feel trustworthy. Average. Struggling. Never succeeding. They said it so matter-of-factly, like it was the truth, like it was the only truth. And yet, in 2 days I was set to walk across a stage to receive an award that almost no one on campus even knew existed until they were nominated for it. An award that came with national recognition, a sealed report, and the kind of power my parents had no idea I possessed. Because the report wasn't about me. It was about them, and everything they'd been hiding for years. But in that moment, before the explosive future, before the unveiling, before the downfall that would make their laughter curdle into horror, I wasn't thinking like someone in control. I was thinking like a daughter who just had her ribs kicked inward by the people who raised her. My eyes burned. My heartbeat clogged my throat. How long had they felt this way? Had every proud of you been a lie? Every smile forced? Every pat on the shoulder hollow? I closed my eyes, trying to shut out their voices, but their words kept replaying, echoing, etching themselves into my bones like scars forming in real time. Then came the line that truly cracked something inside me. "Good thing she won't find out about everything we've done," my father murmured. My mother chuckled. "She died trying to expose us. Sweet girl always was too loyal for her own good." The irony nearly made me choke. Loyal. If only they knew. I pressed a trembling hand against my mouth to keep from making a sound. My chest felt too small for my lungs, like I was swallowing shards of glass each time I inhaled. I stayed still, breath shallow, muscles tight, until I heard the clink of their wine glasses and the soft hum of the TV turning back on. Then I stood. Quietly. Mechanically. Like someone who had just slipped out of her own skin and didn't know how to climb back in. I moved to the window, pushing it open for cold air because I felt like I was suffocating. The night breeze rushed in, sharp and smelling faintly of rain. I clung to that air. My first breath that didn't feel poisoned. Graduation was in 48 hours. And they had no idea what I was about to reveal. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat cross-legged on my carpet, papers spread around me like a halo of secrets. Highlighters, red ink notes, photocopies of financial documents, excerpts from the investigative report. Every page detailed the same thing. My parents weren't who they pretended to be. The successful business philanthropists. The loving couple who always put family first. The well-respected faces at charity functions and local dinners. The truth was the opposite, layered, rotten, ugly. Fraud. Misappropriation of funds. Money laundering disguised under community investments. Fabricated invoices. Charities that were barely functional shells. And the worst part? They involved other families too. People who trusted them. People whose savings evaporated into projects that never existed. People who lost homes, health insurance, marriages, stability. For years, I told myself I didn't see the signs because I was young. Because I was naive. Because who wants to believe their own family is capable of hurting others? But now, listening to their laughter echo down the hallway, I knew the truth. I hadn't seen the signs because I hadn't wanted to. I flipped a page, hand steadying as anger slowly began replacing my shock. The award ceremony wasn't just about honoring students. It was about presenting the year's top investigative research conducted through the university's independent ethics program. My project. The one I submitted anonymously. The one selected unanimously. The one that would be presented publicly, with full documentation displayed on screens behind me. I didn't request anonymity afterward. I wanted my name on the stage when the evidence went live. I wanted them to see that the daughter they dismissed, belittled, and underestimated had been the one person capable of unraveling their empire. But now their words added a new layer of fuel to my fire. Betrayal wasn't new. But overhearing it, feeling it scrape against my skin without warning, that was different. That was personal. That was the final cut. At dawn, I closed the folder and rested my forehead against my knees, breathing through a mixture of grief, rage, and something harder to name. Something like resolve forged under pressure. They didn't believe in me. They never had. But the world was about to. Graduation morning arrived gray and heavy, the clouds low enough to make everything feel dim. I dressed slowly, gown pressed, cords draped over my shoulders, metal tucked in my pocket. My stomach churned, but not from fear. From anticipation. My parents were bustling downstairs, voices bright and excited, as if last night's conversation had never happened. "Sweetheart," my mother called. "Don't forget to come down for pictures." Pictures. Smiling family photos. Arms around shoulders. Fake affection. My jaw tightened. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, they turned toward me with practiced smiles. "You look beautiful," my father said. "Hard to believe our little girl's graduating." My mother smoothed a fake tear. "We're just so proud." Proud. The word hit me like a slap. I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat and forced a nod. I couldn't let anything crack early. Not yet. Not before the auditorium. Not before the unveiling. "Thank you," I said quietly. My mother clasped her hands. "Ready for the big moment?" "Yes," I answered. "More than you know." The ceremony was held in the largest auditorium on campus. Rows upon rows of seats filled with families, faculty, donors, and strangers waiting to applaud achievements they knew nothing about. Lights hung low. Banners shimmered. The stage gleamed with polished wood and anticipation. My parents sat in the front row, all smiles. My mother wore pearls. My father wore expensive cologne that clung to the aisle for seconds after he passed. I kept my gaze forward. Fixed. Focused. The speeches began. Applause. Names. Diplomas. Then came the moment that made my pulse thunder against my ribs. "And now," the dean said, stepping toward the podium, "we present the annual Integrity in Investigative Research Award, given to the graduating senior whose work demonstrates exceptional courage, ethical clarity, and impact on real-world accountability." A murmur spread through the audience. Cameras clicked. Spotlights shifted. "This year's recipient," the dean continued, "has conducted a groundbreaking examination of financial misconduct hidden beneath layers of charitable facades. Their work not only reveals multi-year fraud, but also protects countless families from further harm." The crowd hushed. My parents exchanged curious glances. "And the recipient is?" The dean looked up, smiled, spoke my name. Applause rippled through the room. I walked slowly, controlled, steady, not a trembling student, not a nervous daughter, but a woman stepping into truth like armor. My mother's smile faltered. My father leaned forward, brow tightening. They sensed something. Not enough. Not yet. I reached the podium. The lights dimmed. The screens behind me flickered to life. And the first document appeared. One of their forged invoices. The crowd gasped. My parents froze. I looked out at them, expression calm, composed, unrecognizable even to myself. "Thank you," I began, voice steady. "This project is deeply personal." My father's face drained of color. My mother's hands curled around her purse so tightly the leather wrinkled. "Good. Let them feel it. Let them feel everything." I took a slow breath, the kind that steadied my ribs and cleared the static from my mind. Behind me, the second slide appeared. Bank transfers, names, dates. Numbers arranged neatly like footprints in fresh snow. Undeniable, traceable. "My research," I said, "began as an academic requirement. But what I discovered, what I pieced together, it was never just theory." My voice didn't tremble. The steadiness surprised even me. "When I started," I continued, "I thought I was investigating a faceless organization, a system, an abstract wrong." The third slide appeared. the fake charity's ledger, the signature line, my father's signature. A ripple of gasps moved through the auditorium, soft but unmistakable. My father's mouth fell open just barely. His eyes flashed confusion first, then dawning recognition, then something sharper. Panic. That raw, unguarded kind of panic a predator feels when the ground finally sinks beneath them. My mother blinked rapidly, as if she could dislodge the truth by force. I didn't set out to expose people I knew, I said, my tone low, almost gentle. Let alone people I loved. Loved. The past tense wasn't lost on anyone. Behind me, the next slide shifted into place. Their charity's annual spending. Entire columns of funds allocated to community outreach programs that didn't exist. Not one. Not anywhere. The investigative team contacted every listed recipient. No one had ever heard of the organization my parents claimed to support. My father stood up. Not aggressively. Not yet. Just slowly, as if needing to confirm that his legs still worked. Ma'am, he said, turning to the dean a few rows behind him, there has been some sort of mistake. No mistake, the dean replied, his voice clipped cold. All findings were verified by an independent ethics board before this ceremony. Murmurs intensified. People leaned in, eyes darting between screens and my parents. My mother rose too, her face drained of the poise she carried like a second skin. I held up a hand. Please, I said into the microphone, sit. The room hung suspended around that single word, sit. Not a plea. Not a request. A command. Calm. Deadly calm. My father stared at me, eyes narrowing. What are you doing? The auditorium lights reflected off the sweat now forming at his hairline. My heart pounded, but I didn't let myself look away. Finishing what I started. The next slide filled the screen. And this one was worse. Much worse. Internal emails, names, timestamps, threads back and forth detailing how funds would be rerouted through shell accounts, false outreach receipts drafted, tax forms manipulated. Each message meticulously cataloged and cross-referenced by the university's ethics division. My parents' names appeared again and again. The audience stiffened. Shock thickened the air like fog. Then came the final document, the affidavit I filed with the Federal Oversight Committee. Sealed, time-stamped, approved. Their investigation already underway. My mother's knees buckled. She lowered herself back into her seat as if her bones had softened. My father's face twisted. Anger finally rising like bile. You little. Don't, I said, my tone sharp enough to silence him mid-syllable. A hush rippled through the audience. You wanted the world to believe you were role models, I said, my voice steady as a blade held upright. You wanted to be admired, envied, respected. I took a breath. And you wanted a daughter who looked up to you. My throat tightened, not with doubt, but with grief I finally allowed myself to feel. But I can't look up to people who step on others to climb higher. Silence. Total. Heavy. My award isn't for exposing you, I added softer now. It's for preventing you from hurting more people. People who trusted you. People you laughed about behind closed doors. My mother's eyes widened, she remembered. The conversation from 2 nights ago. The mocking. The dismissal. My father didn't blink. He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. And maybe he was. You blindsided us. He hissed under his breath, though loud enough that the front rows heard him. No, I said. You blinded yourselves. I stepped back from the podium. The screens faded to the university's seal. The dean walked forward, expression grave. Thank you, he said quietly. Please take your seat. Applause began hesitantly. One pair of hands, then another. Then more. And before long, the auditorium echoed with applause so thunderous it felt like a physical wave rolling across the room. But none of it felt triumphant. I felt hollow, shaken, shivering beneath my gown. Not because I regretted what I'd done, but because betrayal never leaves clean edges. It shreds. After the ceremony, students gathered outside with families for photos, hugs, celebrations. Laughter floated across the courtyard like confetti. My parents didn't come to me. They waited near the fountains, rigid, silent, a small isolated island no one approached. People whispered as they passed. Some stared openly. A few faculty members avoided eye contact, choosing the long route around. I walked toward them anyway. When my father saw me coming, his jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle pulsing. My mother stared at the ground, fingers twisted together. "You humiliated us," my father said before I even stopped walking. "You humiliated yourselves," I replied quietly. "You could have come to us. We could have handled this privately. You didn't have to. You would have buried it," I cut in. "Blamed someone else. Lied. Like always." My father's nostrils flared. "You're our daughter," he said, voice low, trembling with tightly coiled rage. "How could you betray us like this?" A broken, humorless laugh escaped me. "How could you?" He recoiled slightly, as if the answer hurt more than the accusation. "You taught me to tell the truth," I continued. "You taught me that integrity mattered." My mother looked up, finally meeting my gaze. Her eyes were red, wet, and for a flicker of a second, just a heartbeat, I saw something that looked like regret. Or fear. Or maybe both. "We were trying to build a life for this family," she whispered. "We were trying to give you opportunities. By stealing other people's money?" She closed her eyes. "You weren't supposed to know," she said, voice trembling. "I do," I replied. "I know everything." My father stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "You think the world will congratulate you?" he asked. "You think they'll admire you? You are naive. You're a child who doesn't understand consequences." My chest tightened. "You're right," I said softly. "I didn't understand. Not until I overheard you." Both of them stiffened. My father's mouth twitched. My mother froze entirely. "I heard everything," I said. "Every word. Every laugh. Every insult." Silence sucked the air from between us. My father looked away first. "We didn't mean." "You did," I said. "And it helped me finish the report." Something in my mother broke then. Not dramatically, but quietly, like a porcelain cup cracking in slow motion. Her face folded into a grief I hadn't seen before. "You're our daughter," she whispered, barely audible. "I was," I said. "Before you made me feel like I'd never be enough." My father inhaled sharply. "So this is punishment?" "No," I replied. "This is accountability." We stared at one another. A fractured family. A broken triangle. The wind breezed through the courtyard, carrying laughter from other families. Warmth I no longer recognized. Finally, my father spoke again, his voice flat, defeated. "They'll arrest us." I swallowed. "That's not my decision." My mother took a shaky breath, her voice cracking. "You destroyed us." "No," I said. "You destroyed yourselves." I just stopped pretending not to see it. For the first time, neither of them had anything left to say. The next morning, federal agents arrived. Not with sirens. Not with spectacle. Just quiet authority. Neighbors peeked from windows. Cameras clicked. My parents were escorted calmly, professionally. My mother didn't cry. My father didn't shout. They just looked small. So much smaller than I ever remembered them being. I watched from the driveway, arms wrapped around myself, the graduation medal cold against my skin beneath my shirt. A part of me wanted to feel triumph, relief, vindication. But what I felt was heavier. Layers of grief settling into the spaces where loyalty used to live. As the cars pulled away, I whispered, not for them to hear, but for myself. I didn't want this. And I hadn't. But some betrayals, once uncovered, can't be put back into the dark. Weeks later, I received a letter. No return address. Handwritten. My mother's handwriting. I held it for a long time before finally opening it, afraid of what it might contain. Anger, accusation, blame. But the letter was something else entirely. It read, "We didn't believe you could succeed because we didn't believe we deserved a daughter who could rise above us. You were everything we weren't brave enough to be. That terrified us. It made us cruel. You didn't betray us. We betrayed you. I am sorry. Mom." One paragraph. No excuses. No defenses. For the first time in months, I let myself cry. Not because the wound reopened, but because it finally had room to heal. Betrayal doesn't always end with fire. Sometimes it ends with quiet truth, with painful acceptance, with the understanding that justice and grief can exist side by side. Graduation wasn't the beginning of my career. It was the beginning of my freedom. And as I walked across campus weeks later, no cameras, no applause, just sunlight filtering through trees, I realized something profound. My parents had spent years convincing me I would never succeed. But the moment I stood on that stage, with the truth displayed behind me, the world watching, I finally understood what success actually meant. Not applause, not approval, not perfection, just courage. The courage to face what hurts, the courage to protect others, the courage to walk forward, even when the people you love stand in the way. And I walked forward, without looking back.